Picture this: a dimly lit chamber deep within an ancient Egyptian temple, the air thick with the scent of burning incense. A high priest kneels before the pharaoh, his voice low and reverent as he deciphers the ruler's dream, a vision sent by the gods themselves. To the pharaoh, this wasn't just a fleeting nighttime illusion. It was a message from the divine, a glimpse into the future, or even a warning etched in symbols of fire and shadow. This moment, repeated across millennia in cultures around the world, reveals something profound. Dreams have never been just dreams. They've been oracles, guides, and mirrors of the soul, shaping empires, inspiring art, and unraveling the deepest mysteries of the human mind. From the moment our ancestors first closed their eyes beneath the stars, dreams have held us captive. Imagine a Babylonian king etching his visions onto clay tablets, a Greek pilgrim sleeping in a sacred temple to receive healing dreams from the gods, or a medieval scholar scribbling interpretations under candlelight. These weren't solitary acts, they were part of a universal human quest to understand the unseen. What if I told you that the way we view dreams today is just one thread in a vast, intricate tapestry woven over thousands of years? A tapestry where dreams predicted battles, revealed hidden truths, and even bridged the gap between the living and the dead. So what did people truly believe about dreams? That's the journey we're about to embark on, a voyage through time, from the dream temples of antiquity to the psychology labs of the modern era. We'll uncover how dreams were once thought to be whispers from the gods, how they guided kings and commoners alike, and why, even now, they remain one of humanity's most enduring enigmas. Along the way, you'll discover how a single dream could alter the course of history, why some cultures feared nightmares as literal demons, and how our understanding of the sleeping mind has evolved in ways our ancestors could never have imagined. This isn't just a story about dreams, it's about us, our fears, our hopes, and our unshakable belief that somewhere in the darkness of sleep, the universe speaks. Ready to listen? In ancient Egypt, dreams were far more than random nighttime stories. They were sacred messages pulsing with divine intention. The Egyptians believed that when a person slept, their soul could wander into the realm of the gods, returning with visions meant to guide, warn, or even bestow power. Temples doubled as dream incubators, where priests trained in the art of oneromancy, the interpretation of dreams, would help seekers decode these celestial whispers. Among the most revered were the priests of Serapis, who acted as bridges between the mortal world and the divine, translating symbols etched in sleep into actionable wisdom. Whether you were a pharaoh or a farmer, a dream could alter the course of your life, and ignoring it was unthinkable. Take the tale of Thutmose IV, a prince who once napped in the shadow of the Great Sphinx. In his dream, the Sphinx itself spoke, offering him the throne of Egypt, but only if he freed its buried body from the desert sands. Thutmose obeyed, and just as promised, he became king. This wasn't just mythology, it was history recorded on stone, a testament to how dreams could shape dynasties. But it wasn't only rulers who lived by these visions. Ordinary Egyptians consulted dream manuals like the famous Dream Book, a papyrus filled with hundreds of symbols and their meanings. Dream of a mirror. You might soon face deception. See a snake, transformation was coming. Every detail, from the color of the sky to the behavior of animals, held layers of significance, turning each night into a potential conversation with the unseen. What's striking is how methodical the Egyptians were. They didn't just passively receive dreams, they actively courted them. Before sleep, many would recite prayers or leave offerings, hoping to invite clearer, more prophetic visions. And if a dream felt particularly urgent, it might even be carved into temple walls, a permanent record of the divine touching the earthly. But Egypt wasn't alone in this reverence. Across the Mediterranean, in Mesopotamia, dream interpreters scoured clay tablets for omens, while in Greece, pilgrims flocked to healing sanctuaries like Epidaurus, where the god Asclepius would visit them in dreams to cure ailments. The details varied, but the core belief echoed. Dreams were a language, and if you learned to listen, they could tell you secrets no waking voice ever would. While the Egyptians saw dreams as divine whispers, the Mesopotamians took it a step further. They treated them as coded messages, meticulously etched into clay tablets like celestial weather reports. In the world's first known dream diaries, dating back over 4,000 years, every detail mattered. A scribe might record a nobleman dreaming of a flood, only for priests to cross-reference it with omen texts, determining whether it signaled an actual disaster or a metaphorical upheaval in the kingdom. These weren't casual interpretations. They were high-stakes divinations, with entire harvests or military campaigns hinging on the Baurus, the priestly dream interpreters who served as Mesopotamia's spiritual cryptographers. One of the most striking examples comes from the Epic of Gilgamesh, where dreams aren't just background noise, they're narrative cornerstones. When Enkidu dreams of the gods condemning him to death, it's not a vague premonition. It's a chillingly precise verdict, delivered in symbols so vivid they blur the line between dream and destiny. This wasn't fiction to the Mesopotamians, it was a reflection of how they understood reality. Dreams didn't just hint at the future, they revealed the unalterable will of the gods etched into the fabric of the night. And if you knew how to read them, you held a kind of power. But how did one cultivate these divine messages? Enter incubation, a practice as deliberate as it was mystical. Seekers would purify themselves, then sleep in temple courtyards dedicated to gods like Shamash or Ishtar, hoping for a revelatory dream. The rituals were precise: fasting, prayer, even specific sleeping positions, all designed to open a channel to the divine. What's fascinating is how this practice rippled across cultures, from Mesopotamia to Greece, evolving but never losing its core belief that dreams could be summoned, not just received. Where the Egyptians focused on dreams as personal guidance, Mesopotamians saw them as cosmic bulletins, filled with omens that could sway empires. A king might delay a war based on a dream of crumbling city walls, or a merchant might cancel a voyage after dreaming of a storm. Yet for all their gravity, these interpretations weren't set in stone. The same symbols, say, a lion, could mean triumph for a ruler but betrayal for a commoner. Context was everything, and the Baurus were masters of nuance, weighing each detail against a vast library of celestial precedent. This intricate system didn't vanish with the fall of Mesopotamia. Instead, it traveled, carried by traders and conquerors, to the shores of Greece, where it would merge with local beliefs in ways no one could have predicted. The Greeks would take these ancient practices and spin them into something new, but the core idea remained. When humanity closes its eyes, the gods begin to speak. For the ancient Greeks, dreams weren't just messages, they were medicine. At the heart of this belief stood the Asclepians, sprawling temple complexes where the sick and suffering journeyed from across the known world, desperate for a cure. Here, in the hush of sacred courtyards, they would lie down in the abaton, a special chamber where the veil between the mortal and divine was said to thin. As night fell, the air thick with the scent of burning herbs and the murmur of prayers, pilgrims closed their eyes, hoping the god Asclepius would visit them in their sleep. when he appeared often as a bearded figure holding a staff entwined with a serpent, or even as the serpent itself, his presence alone could heal. Some claimed he performed spectral surgeries, leaving them miraculously whole by dawn. No one documented these experiences more meticulously than Aelius Aristides, a Roman orator who spent years seeking relief at Pergamon's Asclepieion. His sacred tales read like a dream diary crossed with a medical journal, filled with visions of Asclepius prescribing bizarre yet effective remedies, rolling naked in the snow, swallowing vinegar, or offering sacrifices at odd hours. What's fascinating isn't just the cures themselves, but the unshakable faith behind them. To Aristides and thousands like him, these weren't fantasies. They were tangible interactions with a god who blurred the line between spiritual and physical healing. The Greeks didn't see all dreams as equal, though. They sorted them into two distinct categories. Symbolic dreams required decoding, their meanings wrapped in metaphor like riddles from the gods. A dream of a falling tree might signal a coming betrayal, while a storm at sea could hint at emotional turmoil. But oracular dreams were different, clear, direct prophecies that unfolded exactly as seen. When the poet Homer wrote of Zeus sending a dream of truth to Agamemnon, he was describing this very idea. Some dreams were divine bulletins, unedited and unfiltered. What made the Greek approach unique was its duality. Dreams were both personal and universal, capable of diagnosing a fever or foretelling a famine. Priests at the Asclepieions acted as early psychotherapists, guiding visitors to interpret their visions while recording patterns that might aid future pilgrims. This systematic reverence would later catch the attention of the Romans, who adopted Asclepius as Aesculapius but kept the core belief intact. That sleep wasn't an escape from the world, but a doorway to something far greater. Yet the Asclepieions offered more than just healing, they offered proof. When a blind man awoke with sight or a cripple walked again, it wasn't attributed to chance. These were miracles etched into temple walls, testimonials to the god's power, and perhaps that's why the practice endured for centuries, outlasting wars and empires. In a world without antibiotics or MRI machines, the dream temples offered something just as vital: hope, wrapped in the certainty that the divine was always listening, even in the silence of sleep. In Rome, dreams weren't just personal revelations, they were political weapons. Take Emperor Constantine, standing on the eve of the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, torn between gods and empires. According to legend, he gazed at the sky and saw a blazing cross with the words, "In this sign, conquer." That vision didn't just alter the course of the battle, it reshaped history, catapulting Christianity from persecuted cult to imperial religion. Whether divine intervention or strategic brilliance, Constantine wielded that dream like a general's decree, proof that the heavens themselves endorsed his rule. And he wasn't alone. Emperors from Augustus to Nero leaned on dreams to legitimize their power, turning nighttime visions into tools of statecraft. Behind the scenes, a shadowy class of dream interpreters orbited the Senate, their influence as potent as any senator's vote. Known as the haruspices, these specialists decoded dreams with the precision of lawyers passing a contract. When a senator claimed Jupiter appeared to him in a dream, urging an alliance with a rival city, the haruspices weighed in. Was this divine counsel or political manipulation? The line blurred often. Dreams could delay votes, cancel wars, or even exile enemies, all under the guise of celestial guidance. Yet for all their authority, not everyone bought into the mystique. Cicero, the sharp-tongued philosopher, skewered dream divination in his treatise on divination, calling it the superstition of the gullible. To him, dreams were just the mind's chaos, not dispatches from the gods. Walk the streets of Pompeii, though, and you'd find Romans of every class scribbling their dreams onto walls like ancient status updates. A baker dreams of overflowing grain, a soldier of his fallen comrade, each etching a snapshot of hopes and dreads etched in plaster. These weren't abstract symbols, they were intimate dialogues with the unseen, a way to navigate love, loss, and ambition. Public and private, sacred and skeptical Rome's relationship with dreams was as layered as its empire. Then came Christianity, which didn't dismiss dreams so much as rebrand them. Pagan gods became angels, temple incubation turned into prayerful vigils. Constantine's cross was just the beginning. Suddenly, dreams weren't about imperial ambition but salvation, with saints and martyrs stepping into the role of Asclepius. Yet the old ways lingered, woven into the new faith like a palimpsest, proving that even as empires rose and fell, humanity's fascination with the night's whispers endured. The Bible treats dreams not as random flickers of the night, but as divine broadcasts, crisp, urgent, and drenched in meaning. Take Jacob fleeing his brother's wrath under a star-strewn sky. When he lays his head on a stone and dreams of a ladder stretching to heaven, angels ascending and descending like celestial messengers, it's more than a vision. It's a contract. God speaks directly, promising land, descendants, and protection, transforming that lonely patch of desert into sacred ground. By sunrise, Jacob anoints the stone with oil, marking the spot as Bethel, the house of God. For centuries after, pilgrims would retrace his steps, proof that a single dream could etch holiness into geography. Then there's Joseph, the dreamer whose visions nearly got him killed. When he tells his brothers of sheaves of wheat bowing to his, or the sun, moon, and stars paying him homage, their jealousy ignites. They toss him into a pit, then sell him into slavery, ironically, setting the stage for those very dreams to unfold. In Egypt, Joseph's gift for interpretation turns him from prisoner to vizier. Pharaoh's nightmares of gaunt cows devouring fat ones and withered grain swallowing healthy stalks aren't just puzzles, they're divine weather reports. Joseph decodes them as 7 years of plenty followed by 7 of famine, a prophecy that saves nations. Here, dreams aren't personal fortune-telling, they're civic survival tools wielded by God to steer history. But not all biblical dreams are benevolent. Enter Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king haunted by a colossal statue shattered by a mysterious stone. When his court magicians fail to interpret it, the Jewish exile Daniel steps in. The dream, he reveals, foretells the rise and fall of empires, with God's kingdom as the final, unshakable stone. What's striking is the duality dreams can crown prophets like Daniel, yet Deuteronomy warns sternly against false dreamers peddling lies. Let the prophet who presumes to speak in my name a word I did not command be put to death. The text thunders, drawing a stark line between divine messages and deceptive fantasies. Fast forward to the New Testament, where dreams pivot from empire shaking to intimately pivotal. Joseph, betrothed to Mary, dreams of an angel explaining her pregnancy is divine. His trust in that vision spares Mary from scandal and shelters the unborn Jesus. Later, Pontius Pilate's wife sends a frantic warning. Have nothing to do with that innocent man, she pleads after a dream leaves her suffering greatly. Whether Pilate heeds her or not, the moment underscores how dreams could whisper into the ears of power, even on the eve of crucifixion. Islam would later deepen this tapestry. The Quran honors Joseph Yusuf anew, dedicating an entire surah to his dream-filled life, while the Prophet Muhammad's own night journey, the Isra and Miraj, blurs the line between dream and mystic voyage. Yet Islamic scholars, like their Jewish and Christian counterparts, urge discernment. A true dream, they taught, is 1/66th of prophecy precious, but requiring verification. From Genesis to the Quran, the message echoes: dreams might be divine, but the wisdom to interpret them, that's distinctly human. In the Islamic tradition, dreams aren't just fleeting images, they're a language of the soul, meticulously categorized and decoded. Scholars developed Tabir al-Ruya, a science of dream interpretation that sorted visions into three distinct types. True dreams, or ruya, were considered a fragment of prophecy, divine messages often arriving in the clarity of dawn. Chaotic dreams, hulum, were seen as the mind's clutter, reflections of daily worries or indigestion. And then there were the diabolical adgath olam, nightmares whispered by evil spirits, meant to mislead or frighten. This wasn't just speculation, it was a system as precise as astronomy, with entire volumes written to unravel its mysteries. No dream was more pivotal than the Prophet Muhammad's Isra and Miraj, a journey that began with a single vision. One night, he dreamed of traveling from Mecca to Jerusalem, then ascending through the heavens, meeting prophets and witnessing the divine. What might have been dismissed as fantasy became a cornerstone of Islamic spirituality, a testament to how dreams could bridge earthly and celestial realms. The event wasn't just a personal revelation, it shaped rituals like the 5 daily prayers, embedding the dream's legacy into the fabric of faith. At the heart of this tradition stood scholars like Ibn Sirin, whose 9th century manual Tafsir al-Alam became the gold standard for interpreters. His work wove Quranic verses into dream symbolism with astonishing detail. Dreaming of water might signify wisdom, echoing the Quran's description of knowledge as a life-giving rain. A falcon could represent a powerful ruler, while a crumbling wall might warn of neglected duty. These weren't arbitrary connections, they were threads linking the subconscious to sacred text, offering believers a roadmap to navigate their inner worlds. What's fascinating is how communal this practice was. In markets and mosques, people would gather at dawn, the hour believed most receptive to true dreams, to share and dissect their visions. A merchant might describe a dream of overflowing wheat, and neighbors would debate its meaning, drawing on Ibn Sirin's texts or local wisdom. This ritual wasn't confined to the past. Even today, from Casablanca to Kuala Lumpur, you'll find Muslims turning to elders or scholars for dream guidance, a living thread to centuries of tradition. Yet while Islamic dream science flourished, medieval Europe took a darker turn. The Church, wary of divination, began scrutinizing dreams as potential heresy. Visions that didn't align with doctrine risked being labeled demonic, and interpreters faced suspicion. Where Islamic scholars saw a spectrum of meaning, European authorities often saw only danger, a divide that reflected deeper tensions between faith and the unexplainable. But in both worlds, one truth endured: dreams held power, whether as divine whispers or shadows to be feared. The difference lay in how each culture dared to listen. In medieval Europe, dreams took on a sinister edge, no longer just messages from God, but potential traps laid by the devil himself. The Church, wielding enormous influence, taught that sleep was a vulnerable state where demons could invade the mind, twisting visions into temptations. This fear reached its peak during the witch trials, where nightmares became evidence of demonic pacts. The infamous Malleus Maleficarum, a 15th century manual for witch hunters, claimed witches could slip into dreams like thieves, seducing souls or cursing victims from afar. A woman who dreamed of flying might wake to accusations of nocturnal Sabbaths, her subconscious fantasies twisted into proof of heresy. Dreams weren't just personal anymore, they were battlegrounds in a cosmic war between good and evil. Yet beneath this official terror, a quieter tradition persisted. Mystics like Hildegard of Bingen, a 12th century abbess, recorded luminous visions she believed flowed directly from God. Her dreams filled with towering sapphire mountains and voices like flames in a storm were so vivid they inspired illuminated manuscripts and theological treatises. The Church tolerated these visions but cautiously, always probing for signs of pride or deception. Even Hildegard faced scrutiny, her revelations walking a razor's edge between divine favor and dangerous delusion. Meanwhile, in village cottages and fields, ordinary people clung to older beliefs. Farmers planted crops by moon phases seen in dreams, lovers scoured visions for hints of their soulmates, and midwives interpreted pregnant women's dreams to predict a child's fate. These folk practices thrived in whispers, a silent rebellion against the Church's grim warnings. The tension was palpable. While priests denounced dreams as demonic, peasants still sought and found comfort in their nightly omens. By the Renaissance, the pendulum began to swing. Scholars like Artemidorus, whose ancient dream manual Onera Critica was rediscovered, argued that dreams were natural, not supernatural products of the body and mind, not divine or diabolical intervention. Physicians speculated that melancholy caused nightmares, while artists like Albrecht Dürer etched his own dreams into woodcuts, treating them as psychological puzzles rather than spiritual threats. The stage was set for a radical shift. Dreams were no longer just the province of priests or witches, but a frontier of human understanding, waiting to be explored by science and art alike. The Renaissance didn't just revive classical art, it reawakened dreams. Artists and thinkers, no longer shackled by medieval fears, began to see the sleeping mind as a wellspring of creativity and insight. Take Albrecht Dürer, whose 1525 watercolor dream vision captures a nightmarish deluge sweeping through the Alps. Unlike the rigid symbolism of religious art, Dürer's dreamscape is raw and personal, a turbulent mix of nature and emotion. He didn't just paint dreams, he treated them as studio assistants, sketching his nocturnal visions beside anatomical studies, as if the subconscious held secrets even his waking genius couldn't unlock. Shakespeare, too, wielded dreams like a playwright's quill. In A Midsummer Night's Dream, he turns the very act of dreaming into a central character, capricious, transformative, and deliciously unreliable. When Bottom awakens with donkey's ears or Hermia chases phantom lovers through the forest, the audience is left questioning, is this magic or the mind's own theater? The bard understood what scholars were just beginning to articulate, that dreams could be both mirror and window, reflecting inner turmoil while hinting at truths beyond waking logic. Then there's Leonardo da Vinci, whose notebooks are littered with midnight revelations. Amid sketches of flying machines and anatomical cross-sections, he jotted down dreams of soaring like a bird, only to wake mid-fall. These weren't just fantasies, they were blueprints. His designs for ornithopters, human-powered flying devices, borrowed from the very aerodynamics of his dreams. For Leonardo, sleep wasn't an escape from work, but a collaborator, offering solutions his conscious mind strained to grasp. The Renaissance also birthed the first popular dream dictionaries, fat volumes like The Interpretation of Dreams by Italian scholar Girolamo Cardano. These weren't dry lists of symbols, but mashups of classical lore, Christian allegory, and fresh observations. Dreaming of a lion, medieval texts might call it a demon, but Cardano suggested it could symbolize courage, or an actual lion if you'd recently visited a menagerie. The elite devoured these books, treating them as parlor games and psychological guides rolled into one. Physicians like Paracelsus went further, prescribing dream analysis alongside herbs and bloodletting. He believed illnesses announced themselves in dreams long before symptoms appeared. A fever might first manifest as a vision of burning fields. His approach, radical for its time, foreshadowed Freud by centuries, positioning dreams as diagnostic tools rather than divine missives. Yet even as dreamers reveled in this new freedom, the Enlightenment loomed, ready to dissect the mystical with the scalpel of reason. The stage was set for a clash between those who saw dreams as the mind's poetry and those determined to reduce them to mere neural static. The Renaissance had opened the door. Now science stood on the threshold, notebook in hand. The Enlightenment didn't just champion reason, it declared war on mystery, and dreams were among its first casualties. René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy, famously reduced dreams to the brain's idle chatter, calling them illusions no more meaningful than the random flickers of a candle. John Locke went further, comparing dreams to the disjointed ramblings of a feverish mind, their bizarre narratives proof of the brain's fallibility. For these thinkers, dreams weren't divine messages or prophetic whispers, they were glitches, the mind's way of tidying up mental clutter while the body rested. This was a seismic shift. Where ancient priests saw omens, Enlightenment scholars saw only optical illusions of the mind. Yet in candlelit cottages and village squares, folk traditions stubbornly clung to older truths. A pregnant woman dreaming of roses might still be told she'd birth a daughter, while a nightmare of falling teeth could send families scrambling to check on elderly relatives. These beliefs weren't just superstition. They were a kind of grassroots psychology, offering comfort and agency in an uncertain world. The gap between elite skepticism and popular faith widened into a chasm, with philosophers dismissing dreams as nonsense even as farmers planted crops by them. Enter Emanuel Swedenborg, the ultimate contradiction of his age. A brilliant scientist and inventor by day, he shocked Europe by claiming nightly conversations with angels and detailed tours of the afterlife, all through dreams. His visions were so vivid, so meticulously described, they spawned an entire religious movement, the New Church. Here was a man who'd mapped the lunar craters with one hand and sketched heaven's architecture with the other, proving that even in the age of reason, dreams could still append reality. Science, meanwhile, began dissecting sleep itself. In the 1700s, researchers like David Hartley speculated that dreams were the brain's way of processing daily impressions, like a clerk filing papers after hours. By the 19th century, the discovery of REM sleep and neural activity during slumber offered hard evidence that dreams were biologically rooted, not spiritually bestowed. Yet for every lab report, there was a poet like Coleridge, whose opium-fueled dream of Kubla Khan birthed an entire poem proof that even as science demystified dreams, they retained their power to astonish. By the time Freud set up his couch in Vienna, the stage was set for dreams to reclaim their throne, not as divine messages, but as windows to the unconscious. The Enlightenment had tried to dismiss them as noise, but humanity, it seemed, couldn't stop listening. Freud didn't just study dreams, he cracked them open like a locked chest, convinced they held the keys to our deepest, darkest selves. In his groundbreaking 1899 book, The Interpretation of Dreams, he argued that every dream, no matter how absurd, was a scrambled telegram from the unconscious, packed with repressed desires and forgotten traumas. Take his famous example of a patient dreaming of a train plunging into a tunnel. Freud didn't see a locomotive. He saw a graphic metaphor for sex, a textbook case of what he called symbolic displacement, where the mind disguises taboo urges in harmless imagery. To Freud, dreams were never just about the surface story, the manifest content, but the hidden latent content bubbling beneath, a psychological sleight of hand to protect us from our own forbidden thoughts. But why the obsession with sex? Freud's Vienna was a powder keg of repression, where Victorian morals clashed with explosive scientific discoveries. His patients, mostly affluent women, arrived with paralysis, tics, and hallucinations, symptoms with no physical cause. Through dream analysis, Freud became convinced their ailments stemmed from stifled sexual longings, often tracing back to childhood. A dream of falling wasn't just a fear of failure, it might echo an infant's memory of being dropped. A house with locked rooms, a symbol for the body, its secrets barricaded away. His theories were electrifying but also reductive. Critics soon pointed out that not every cigar is a phallic symbol. Sometimes a dream about a train is just about missing one. Yet for all its flaws, Freud's work revolutionized psychology. He turned dream interpretation from a mystic art into a clinical tool, giving therapists a roadmap to the unconscious. His couch became a confessional where patients free associated their way through dream fragments, unraveling knots of guilt and desire. Suddenly, dreams weren't just curiosities, they were case files, proof that the mind was a layered, self-deceiving puzzle. Enter Carl Jung, Freud's protege turned rival, who saw dreams not as vaults of repression, but as libraries of universal wisdom. Where Freud fixated on personal trauma, Jung believed dreams tapped into a collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of archetypes: the hero, the shadow, the wise old man, that recurred across cultures and centuries. A patient dreaming of a snake might not be grappling with suppressed lust, as Freud would argue, but encountering a symbol of transformation, as ancient as the Ouroboros swallowing its tail. Jung's approach was more spiritual, less clinical, framing dreams as the psyche's way of balancing itself, offering guidance, not just confession. The tension between these two giants still echoes today. Freud's legacy lingers in therapy rooms where dreams are mined for personal meaning, while Jung's influence thrives in art and spirituality, where they're seen as portals to something grander. Together, they reshaped the modern dreamscape, proving that even as science demystifies the brain, the night's visions refuse to surrender their secrets. Carl Jung's vision of dreams was less like a locked diary and more like a grand, echoing cathedral, filled with symbols so ancient they predated language itself. Where Freud saw personal repression, Jung glimpsed something vast and collective, a shared psychic inheritance he called the archetypes. These weren't just recurring motifs, they were the mind's primordial blueprints, surfacing in dreams as characters and scenarios so universal, they transcended culture and time. The shadow, for instance, that dark, often terrifying figure chasing us through nightmares, wasn't just a personal fear. To Jung, it represented the parts of ourselves we disowned, the instincts and urges society taught us to bury. Encountering it in dreams wasn't a sign of pathology, but of growth, a summons to integrate what we'd exiled. Then there were the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine energies Jung believed lived in every psyche. A man dreaming of a mysterious, alluring woman might be confronting his anima, his suppressed intuition and emotion. For women, the animus could appear as a stern scholar or a heroic figure, embodying neglected logic or assertiveness. What made these archetypes revolutionary was their uncanny resonance across history. The hero's journey, the wise old crone, the trickster, these figures populated not just dreams but the myths of every continent, from the Greek Odysseus to the Native American coyote. Jung's patients, many of whom had never studied mythology, dreamed in these ancient patterns, as if the human mind came preloaded with a library of sacred stories. One of Jung's most striking cases involved a man haunted by visions of a floating, disembodied eye. Months later, Jung stumbled upon an ancient Egyptian text describing the Eye of Horus, a symbol of divine protection, in nearly identical terms. The patient, a banker with no interest in archaeology, had somehow tapped into an image millennia old, For Jung, this wasn't coincidence. It was proof of the collective unconscious, a psychic substratum connecting all humanity. He amassed hundreds of such parallels, modern dreams of serpents coiled around eggs mirroring Babylonian creation myths, or visions of cosmic trees echoing Norse Yggdrasil. The implications were staggering. Our most private dreams might be conversations with the entirety of human experience. Yet Jung's mysticism clashed fiercely with Freud's rigid materialism. Where Freud dissected dreams like a surgeon, Jung wandered through them like a poet, open to spiritual dimensions his mentor dismissed as superstition. Their rift wasn't just academic, it reflected a fundamental divide in how we understand the mind. Freud's world was one of cause and effect, trauma and repression. Jung's was a living tapestry where dreams could be both personal and cosmic, psychological and sacred. This tension between the mystical and the clinical didn't start or end with Western psychology. Indigenous cultures had long maintained their own dream traditions, often blending the practical and the prophetic in ways that made Jung's archetypes seem like distant echoes. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia spoke of the dream time, where ancestors' spirits shaped the land and still visited sleeping descendants with guidance. In the Andes, Quechua shamans interpreted dreams as journeys to the Akupacha, the inner world, where healing and prophecy intertwined. Unlike Freud or Jung, these traditions rarely separated the symbolic from the literal. A dream of a bear might signal an actual bear spirit's message, not just an archetype. Jung himself recognized this, studying Native American rituals and Eastern philosophies to refine his theories. But even he couldn't fully bridge the gap between the analytic and the ancestral. Modern psychology, for all its tools, still grapples with the same question. Are dreams whispers from our neurons or from something far older? The answer, perhaps, lies not in choosing one over the other, but in listening, as cultures have for millennia, to what the night insists on telling us. For many Native American tribes, dreams weren't just personal experiences, they were communal lifelines woven into the very fabric of daily life. Take the Lakota Vision Quest, a rite of passage where young seekers would fast and pray in isolation, awaiting a dream or vision to reveal their life's purpose. When Black Elk, the famed Oglala holy man, was just 9 years old, he fell ill and dreamed of thunder beings riding horses across the sky, a vision that would guide his role as a healer and spiritual leader. These dreams weren't metaphors, they were maps offering direction in hunting, healing, and even warfare. A warrior might dream of a bear's strength before battle, or a shaman receive a song in their sleep to cure the sick. Dreams blurred the line between the individual and the tribe, binding people to ancestors and nature in a way Western individualism rarely grasps. Half a world away, the Aboriginal peoples of Australia spoke of the dreamtime, not as a place or era, but as a living dimension where ancestral spirits shaped the land and still spoke through dreams. A rock formation wasn't just geological, it was the frozen body of a creator being, its story whispered to descendants in sleep. Dreaming of a kangaroo might mean more than a random image. It could be an ancestor offering wisdom or warning. This wasn't superstition, it was a cosmology where every dream tied the present to the eternal, making the past as real as the waking world. Then there's the Senoi of Malaysia, who turned dreaming into a social practice. Each morning, families gathered to share and analyze their dreams over breakfast, treating them as shared property. A child's nightmare of falling wasn't dismissed, they were encouraged to ride the fall and land safely, transforming fear into empowerment. Conflicts between villagers were resolved by comparing dreams, revealing hidden tensions before they escalated. The Senoi didn't just interpret dreams, they actively shaped them, proving that the subconscious could be cultivated like a garden. Yet these traditions faced brutal suppression under colonialism. Missionaries branded Native American vision quests as pagan, Australian Dreamtime stories as primitive, and Senoi practices as backward. The West's obsession with individualism and rationalism dismissed communal dream cultures as irrational, severing ties to ancestral wisdom. But modern science is now stumbling upon what these cultures always knew. Studies on lucid dreaming echo the Senoi's techniques, while research on dream symbolism aligns with indigenous views of dreams as problem-solving tools. The irony is profound. Labs with EEG machines are confirming truths that oral traditions upheld for millennia. But science still struggles with the spiritual dimension, the unshakable indigenous belief that dreams aren't just neural fireworks, but conversations with something far older and wiser. Whether that something is ancestors, archetypes, or the collective unconscious depends on who you ask. What's undeniable is that these traditions offer something clinical psychology often lacks, a sense of sacredness, a reminder that the night holds more than we dare to name. The 20th century didn't just reinterpret dreams, it dissected them. In 1953, a breakthrough at the University of Chicago shattered centuries of speculation. Eugene Aserinsky, a graduate student monitoring sleeping subjects, noticed their eyes darting rapidly beneath closed lids. When he woke them during these episodes, they reported vivid dreams 95% of the time. This was REM sleep, the first hard evidence that dreams weren't abstract visions but measurable brain events. Suddenly, the mystical met the microscope. Scientists could now track dreaming not by interpreting symbols, but by observing electrical storms in the hippocampus and bursts of activity in the visual cortex. The ancients believed dreams were messages from the gods. Neuroscience revealed they were conversations between neurons, but one myth refused to die, the idea that dreams flash by in seconds. Laboratory studies proved otherwise. When subjects were woken mid-dream and asked to recount their experiences, their narratives matched the duration of REM cycles. A 5-minute dream felt like 5 minutes, complete with intricate plots and emotional arcs. Researchers even found that people dreaming of running or dancing showed corresponding muscle twitches, as if the body were rehearsing the actions in real time. This wasn't just mental static, it was parallel storytelling, a second life unfolding in the theater of the sleeping brain. Why does the mind stage these elaborate productions? One compelling theory centers on memory. During REM sleep, the brain replays the day's events like a film editor splicing footage, strengthening important memories and discarding clutter. Harvard psychiatrist Robert Stickgold demonstrated this by having subjects play Tetris for hours, then report their dreams. Novices saw falling blocks in their sleep, proof their brains were consolidating new skills. Even more striking were studies where sleepers solved puzzles they'd struggled with while awake. The answer often arrived not through logical deduction, but in dreams' surreal leaps of association. It's as if the brain, freed from daytime constraints, rearranges information into unexpected solutions. Then there are the uncanny dreams, the ones that seem to foretell events. Science offers no shortage of explanations. The frequency illusion means we remember the hits, a dream of a plane crash that coincides with a real disaster, and forget the countless misses. Confirmation bias nudges us to twist vague dream symbols into matches with waking life, but anecdotes persist. Chemist Auguste Kekulé famously dreamed of a snake biting its tail, a vision that revealed the ring structure of benzene. Was it luck, intuition, or something neuroscience can't yet quantify? While labs chart neural pathways, a quieter revolution is brewing outside academia. Modern spiritual movements are resurrecting ancient dream practices with a twist. apps now offer guided dream incubation, blending binaural beats with techniques from Asclepian temples. Psychedelic retreats use substances like ayahuasca to induce waking dreams, seeking the same visions medieval mystics achieved through fasting and prayer. Even corporate workshops teach dream journaling as a creativity tool, repackaging the Senoi tribe's morning dream circles for Silicon Valley. The irony is rich. As science demystifies dreams, people are reaching back to the very traditions science once dismissed. Perhaps some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only experienced in that liminal space where brain chemistry and belief collide. Today's dream explorers are blending cutting-edge science with ancient mysticism, creating a new age renaissance of nocturnal curiosity. Lucid dreaming, once the secret technique of Tibetan monks practicing dream yoga, has gone mainstream, with apps like Lucidity offering real-time feedback to help users recognize they're asleep and seize control of their dreamscapes. The parallels to ancient incubation rituals are striking. Just as Greek pilgrims slept in Asclepians to invite divine dreams, modern lucid dreamers use reality checks, like glancing at their hands, to trigger awareness within sleep, turning passive visions into interactive adventures. Online forums buzz with stories of flying through fractal cities or conversing with dream characters who offer life advice, blurring the line between subconscious and guide. Reddit's Our Dreams community has become a digital temple where thousands dissect nightly visions with the fervor of Mesopotamian priests. A user posts about dreaming of a flooded house, and replies pour in some Freudian repressed emotions, others Jungian the unconscious mind's depths, and a few quoting Native American traditions about water symbolizing change. It's a melting pot of interpretations where a teenager in Tokyo and a grandmother in Norway compare notes on shared archetypes, proving Jung's collective unconscious thrives in the internet age. Yet for all its connectivity, this virtual dream sharing lacks the tactile rituals of old. No incense burns, no temple stones absorb whispered prayers, just pixels and upvotes. The commercialization of dream work walks a fine line between empowerment and exploitation. Subscription-based apps promise to decode dreams using AI, reducing centuries of symbolic wisdom to algorithmically generated platitudes. One popular service charges $10 monthly to analyze dream journals, spitting out cookie-cutter interpretations like dreaming of teeth represents anxiety, a far cry from the Senoi tribe's morning dream circles or Ibn Sirin's nuanced Quranic cross-referencing. Critics argue these tools commodify an experience that cultures once treated as sacred communal labor, turning introspection into a monetized self-help product. Meanwhile, practices like astral projection and shamanic journeying are experiencing a revival, repackaged for the 21st century. YouTube tutorials teach viewers to exit their bodies using binaural beats, a high-tech twist on the drumming that guided Siberian shamans into trances. Podcasters interview modern psychonauts who describe traversing neon-lit dream realms indistinguishable from the spirit worlds of indigenous traditions. The hunger for transcendence persists, only the tools have changed. Pop culture mirrors this obsession. Films like Inception visualize dreams as hackable landscapes, while TV shows like The Sandman dramatize the ancient belief in dreams as alternate dimensions. Even video games like Dreams let players sculpt entire worlds from their subconscious, echoing Aboriginal Dreamtime creation stories. The message is clear: in an era of virtual realities and AI, we're still chasing what our ancestors knew, that the most profound adventures begin when we close our eyes. Hollywood has always been obsessed with dreams, but Christopher Nolan's Inception turned that fascination into a high-stakes heist film where the currency wasn't money, it was subconscious secrets. The movie's central premise, that shared dreaming could let thieves steal ideas or plant new ones, isn't just sci-fi fantasy. It echoes real debates in neuroscience about whether memories can be artificially altered during sleep. Scientists have already proven that playing sounds during REM sleep can reinforce learning. Imagine whispering French vocabulary to a sleeper and waking them fluent. Inception took this concept and spun it into a visual feast of folding cities and zero-gravity fights. But beneath the spectacle lies a question as old as Freud. If dreams are gateways to the mind's hidden vaults, who or what controls the keys? Then there's the Matrix, where the line between dream and reality isn't just blurred, it's erased. When Neo wakes up from the simulated world into a dystopian nightmare, it mirrors the disorientation of sleep paralysis, that eerie moment when the brain wakes before the body, trapping you in a hallucinatory limbo. Ancient cultures blamed demons for this phenomenon. Modern sleep labs trace it to disrupted REM cycles. But the Matrix frames it as existential rebellion, asking whether we'd rather cling to comforting illusions or face unsettling truths. It's no coincidence that both films use dreams to explore autonomy, because what's more personal yet more uncontrollable than the stories our minds tell us in the dark? Music, too, has long been a vessel for dream logic. Aerosmith's Dream On isn't just a power ballad. It's a meditation on ambition and mortality, with Steven Tyler's raspy vocals stretching like the hazy edges of a half-remembered dream. The Beatles' Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, often misinterpreted as a drug anthem, actually sprang from a child's crayon drawing, proof that dreams and creativity share the same surreal DNA. These songs don't just describe dreams, they mimic their structure with nonsensical lyrics that feel profound precisely because they resist literal meaning. Television, meanwhile, uses dreams as psychological X-rays. In The Sopranos, Tony's nightmares aren't just narrative flourishes, they're unscripted confessions. When a talking fish, a callback to his childhood nickname, Big Pussy, taunts him about betrayal, it's Freud by way of HBO, revealing guilt his waking self would never admit. Shows like Fleabag and Atlanta take it further, weaving dreams into the story so seamlessly that viewers can't tell where reality ends and the subconscious begins. Yet for all their artistry, these pop culture dreams operate on instinct, not data. Contrast that with sleep labs, where researchers map brainwaves like cartographers charting undiscovered continents. One study at MIT showed that rats replayed maze routes in their sleep, strengthening neural pathways, a finding that reshaped our understanding of memory. Another experiment demonstrated that lucid dreamers could communicate with scientists in real time using pre-agreed eye movements, turning dreams into a two-way dialogue. So what does this mean for you? Start by treating your dreams like artifacts, not just to decode, but to learn from. Keep a journal by your bed. The act of writing trains the brain to notice patterns. Notice emotions, not just imagery. A dream about losing your phone might really be about fear of disconnection. And if you're intrigued by lucid dreaming, try reality checks like reading a sentence twice to spark awareness mid-dream. Pop culture makes dreams a spectacle, but science reminds us they're also a mirror, reflecting the mind's quiet revolutions back at us. Ever woken up with the lingering shadow of a dream? The feeling that something incredible or bizarre just happened, but the details dissolve like mist the moment you reach for them. You're not alone. Most people forget 90% of their dreams within minutes of waking. But what if you could train yourself to catch those fleeting visions before they vanish? The secret lies in treating your mind like a net, finely woven to capture the whispers of the night. Start with the simplest tool, a dream journal. Keep it right by your bed, along with a pen that glows in the dark. The moment you wake, before you even sit up, jot down every fragment, colors, emotions, even nonsense phrases. Don't worry about grammar or coherence. This isn't literature, it's raw archaeology. Studies show that the act of writing reinforces memory pathways telling your brain, this is worth saving. One Harvard sleep researcher found that participants who journaled for just 1 week doubled their dream recall. The trick is consistency. Think of it as building a muscle. The more you record, the more your subconscious will serve up vivid scenes, almost as if it knows you're paying attention. What you consume before bed matters more than you might think. Alcohol might knock you out, but it sabotages REM sleep, the phase where dreams are most vivid. Caffeine, even 6 hours before bedtime, can fracture your sleep cycles, leaving you with disjointed fragments instead of full narratives. Try swapping that late espresso for chamomile tea or tart cherry juice, both shown to support deeper, more dream-rich sleep. And if you really want to prime your mind, set a clear intention as you drift off. Whisper to yourself, tonight I'll remember my dreams, like programming a mental alarm clock. It sounds mystical, but athletes use similar visualization techniques to enhance performance. Why not dreamers? For the truly dedicated, there's the wake back to bed method. Set your alarm for 4.5 hours after bedtime, just long enough to complete a full sleep cycle. When it buzzes, stay awake for 15 minutes, perhaps sipping water or reading something mundane. Then return to sleep. This liminal state between wakefulness and slumber is a golden window. Your next REM period will be longer and more intense, often yielding dreams so vivid they feel like alternate realities. Artists like Salvador Dali used this technique deliberately, hovering at the edge of sleep to harvest surreal images for his paintings. As your dream journal fills, patterns will emerge. Maybe you keep dreaming of being chased, or you're back in your childhood home, or there's always a mysterious door you're too afraid to open. These aren't random. They're your subconscious sending the same message in different packaging. One woman realized her recurring dream of losing her teeth wasn't about vanity, as Freud might suggest, but a profound fear of losing her voice in a dominating relationship. Another man discovered his nightmares of tidal waves coincided with periods of emotional overwhelm. Your symbols are as unique as your fingerprint, and decoding them starts with asking one simple question: what does this remind me of in my waking life? The answer might surprise you. The beauty of dream recall isn't just in the remembering, it's in the dialogue it sparks with yourself. Every fragment you capture is a clue to the hidden corners of your mind, a conversation starter between your waking and sleeping selves. And once you've gathered these clues, the real adventure begins, figuring out what they're trying to tell you. Dreams might feel like chaotic fragments when you first wake up, but there's a method to uncovering their meaning, and it starts with paying attention to the details others often overlook. Grab a notebook or even use a voice memo app and make it a habit to record everything the moment you open your eyes. Don't just jot down the obvious plot points, note the textures, the colors, even the weather in your dreamscape. Was the sky an eerie shade of purple? Were you walking barefoot on hot sand? These specifics aren't random. They're clues your subconscious leaves behind, like breadcrumbs leading to deeper truths. One study found that people who documented sensory details like smells or temperatures in their dreams were twice as likely to spot recurring patterns over time. Emotions are the secret key to decoding those patterns. A dream about being late for a train might seem straightforward, but how you felt, panicked, resigned, or oddly calm, reveals far more than the scenario itself. Say you dream of arguing with a coworker, but instead of anger, you feel a crushing weight of guilt. That's your mind flagging something your waking self might be avoiding. Psychologists often use the emotion-first rule. Identify the dominant feeling, then work backward to connect it to recent experiences. Did you snap at a friend yesterday? Or maybe you've been suppressing frustration over a lingering obligation. Dreams magnify what we brush aside during the day. Now, let's talk about those universal themes, falling, flying, being chased, that pop up across cultures and centuries. While it's tempting to reach for a one-size-fits-all interpretation, falling equals insecurity, flying equals freedom, the real meaning lies in your personal context. Take flying dreams. For one person, soaring above treetops might reflect a newfound confidence at work, while for another, it could signal a desperate escape from unresolved grief. The same symbol can wear a dozen different masks depending on your life. That's why dream dictionaries often fall short. They ignore the unique fingerprint of your psyche. Instead, treat these common motifs as starting points for self-reflection, not definitive answers. If you're serious about digging deeper, consider tools like Jungian workbooks, which guide you through exercises to dialogue with dream characters or sketch recurring symbols. These aren't just academic exercises, they are bridges between your conscious and unconscious mind. For example, if you keep dreaming of a shadowy figure, a Jungian approach might prompt you to write a letter to that figure, asking what it represents. The answers that surface can be startlingly candid. For those navigating heavier emotional terrain, therapist-guided analysis offers a structured space to explore dreams without feeling overwhelmed. Just remember, no interpretation is set in stone. Dreams are living conversations, not static puzzles to be solved once and filed away. But here's where things get thorny. What happens when someone else insists they know what your dream really means? Or when a well-intentioned friend pathologizes your nightmare as a sign of deep trauma? The ethics of dream interpretation are murky waters. Without consent, analyzing someone else's dreams can feel invasive, like rifling through their diary. Even professionals tread carefully, asking permission before offering insights and emphasizing that the dreamer is the ultimate authority on their own inner world. After all, dreams are intimate territory, messy, mysterious, and profoundly personal. The line between guidance and imposition is one we'd all do well to mind. Dreams can be windows into our deepest struggles, but not all of them should be opened alone. Consider the case of a veteran who kept reliving a battlefield explosion in his sleep, waking up drenched in sweat, convinced the walls of his bedroom were collapsing. At first, he brushed it off as just nightmares, but when the visions bled into his waking hours, flashes of gunfire triggered by car backfires, his wife urged him to seek help. A therapist recognized the signs of post-traumatic stress disorder, using his dreams as a roadmap to process memories too painful to confront while awake. This wasn't about decoding symbols, it was about survival. When dreams become relentless replays of trauma, or when sleep terrors start dictating daytime reality, that's the mind's alarm system blaring. Professional intervention isn't just helpful, it's critical. Yet there's a fine line between supporting someone and playing amateur psychoanalyst. Imagine overhearing a coworker describe a dream about drowning, only to chime in with, "That obviously means you're overwhelmed at work." Even if well-intentioned, such off-the-cuff interpretations can feel invasive, like someone rifling through your mental diary without permission. Dreams are deeply personal, and imposing meaning onto them risks sidelining the dreamer's own insights. A study in the Journal of Clinical Psychology found that premature interpretations, especially from authority figures, could inadvertently plant false memories, leading people to remember traumas they never actually experienced. The ethical approach: listen first, ask open-ended questions like, "How did that dream make you feel?" rather than leaping to conclusions. cultural context complicates things further. In some Native American traditions, dreaming of a bear might signal a call to leadership, while in Korean folklore, it could foretell pregnancy. A snake might represent healing in West African Yoruba beliefs, but betrayal in European symbolism. When therapists or researchers overlook these nuances, they risk misdiagnosing spiritual experiences as delusions or pathologizing normal cultural practices. Case in point, a Hmong refugee in the US was once mislabeled as psychotic after describing visions of ancestral spirits, visions that, in his community, were considered sacred communications. Culturally competent dreamwork starts with humility, acknowledging that no manual can universalize something as fluid as the sleeping mind. So how do we balance curiosity with respect? Think of dreams like art in a museum. You might stand before a painting, absorbing its colors and shapes, forming your own impressions, but you wouldn't grab a brush and start altering the canvas. Approach others' dreams with the same restraint. Observe, reflect, but let them guide the meaning. For those exploring their own dreams, moderation is key. Fixating on every symbol can spiral into obsession, like a student who skipped finals to analyze a dream about failing a test. Dreams are meant to inform, not dominate, our waking lives. As for the future, labs are now merging ancient wisdom with cutting-edge tech. Researchers at MIT use AI to detect patterns in dream journals that might predict depression relapses, while Indigenous healers collaborate with neuroscientists to study how traditional dream rituals affect brainwaves. The goal isn't to solve dreams, but to honor their dual role as psychological mirrors and cultural touchstones. After all, the most profound dreams don't just reveal who we are, they remind us how much we still have left to learn. Imagine a not-so-distant future where your morning routine includes an AI assistant scanning your brainwaves, cross-referencing last night's dreams with a global database of sleep patterns, and alerting you to early signs of stress or illness before symptoms even appear. This isn't science fiction, it's the cutting edge of dream science. Researchers are already training artificial intelligence to detect patterns in dream journals that humans might miss, spotting correlations between recurring nightmare themes and looming mental health episodes. One study at Stanford analyzed thousands of dream reports and found that people who frequently dreamed of being trapped or chased were more likely to experience anxiety flare-ups within weeks. It's as if our subconscious whispers warnings we're too busy to hear, and our eye is learning to amplify those whispers into actionable insights. But how close are we to truly reading dreams? Scientists at Kyoto University have made startling progress using functional magnetic resonance imaging (fMRI) to reconstruct visual elements of dreams. By scanning subjects' brains during sleep and comparing neural activity to pre-recorded responses to images, they've successfully generated crude approximations of dream content. A street scene here, a face there. The technology is still in its infancy, like trying to decipher a novel through a keyhole, but the implications are staggering. Could we one day replay dreams like home videos or share them as effortlessly as we post vacation photos? Startups are already experimenting with dream social networks, where users upload nocturnal narratives for crowd-sourced interpretation. Yet this raises thorny ethical questions. If your dreams betray secrets your waking mind guards closely, unspoken crushes, repressed traumas, who owns that data? Insurance companies already track sleep patterns. Might they someday penalize clients for high-risk dream content? The line between self-discovery and surveillance blurs fast when our inner lives become datasets. The idea of dream hacking pushes these dilemmas further. Military research explores using targeted sound pulses to steer dreams toward resilience-building scenarios, helping soldiers process trauma before it occurs. Meanwhile, consumer gadgets promise to induce lucid dreams via gentle electrical stimulation, a modern twist on ancient incubation rituals. But critics warn that manipulating dreams risks breaking something fundamental in the human psyche. After all, dreams have always been the mind's wild frontier, where logic loosens its grip and creativity runs untamed. Would decoding them completely, reducing their surreal poetry to binary code, drain them of their transformative power? The very mystery that frustrates scientists may be what makes dreams so potent. Yet for all our technological leaps, we still circle back to age-old questions. Modern therapists echo Greek priests when they suggest keeping dream journals to spot life patterns. Silicon Valley's obsession with biohacking sleep mirrors the Senoi tribe's meticulous dream cultivation. Even our fear of interpreting dreams parallels medieval anxieties about demonic deception. The tools change, but the hunger remains to peer beyond the veil of sleep and bring back something that matters. Perhaps the future of dreams lies not in choosing between science and mystery, but in honoring both the data and the divine, the algorithm and the oracle. After all, the night has always spoken in riddles. Some truths were never meant to be solved, only felt in that fleeting moment between darkness and dawn. Even with all our brain scans and sleep labs, dreams still slip through science's grasp like smoke. Think about it. We can map neural pathways, trigger lucidity with electrical pulses, even predict anxiety spikes from recurring nightmares. Yet no algorithm can fully explain why a grieving mother dreams of her lost child handing her a blue rose, or why a musician wakes with a melody so vivid it becomes a hit song. The mystery lingers because dreams aren't just brain chemistry, they're cultural artifacts layered with millennia of human longing. A poll by the Pew Research Center found that nearly 40% of Americans believe dreams reveal hidden truths, a statistic that would have made perfect sense to an Egyptian priest or a Seneca elder. My own grandmother swore her dreams of rain always preceded good fortune, and no amount of meteorology could shake her faith. This stubborn gap between data and meaning reveals something profound. Dreams are where the rational and the mystical shake hands. Neuroscientists call REM sleep a memory sorting mechanism, but try telling that to someone who's dreamed of a deceased loved one whispering comfort. Indigenous cultures frame such visions as visitations, while psychologists attribute them to grief processing. Both can be true. Modern research confirms that dreams help us regulate emotions, yet the way they do it through surreal narratives and symbolic language feels less like a biological function and more like storytelling around humanity's oldest campfire. Consider the shared motifs that haunt sleepers across continents. The sensation of falling, the teeth crumbling to dust, the exam you forgot to study for. These aren't just random misfires. They're echoes of universal fears and desires, polished smooth by centuries of retelling. When a medieval peasant and a modern CEO both dream of being chased, they're tapping into the same primal wiring, a testament to how little our core anxieties have changed despite all our progress. Perhaps dreams endure as enigmas because we need them to. In a world where everything is quantified, our steps counted, our sleep scored, our emotions graphed, dreams remain gloriously unoptimized. They're the last wilderness we can't tame, a space where logic loosens its grip and creativity runs wild. Artists from Mary Shelley to Paul McCartney have credited dreams with their breakthroughs, not because they believed in magic, but because they recognized the mind's ability to solve problems sideways, in the cryptic shorthand of symbols. So where does that leave us, with one foot in an fMRI machine and the other in the dream temples of antiquity, balancing awe and analysis? every time we dismiss a dream as just neurons firing, another sleeper wakes gasping from a vision that changes their life. Maybe the answer isn't choosing between science and mystery, but holding both, letting the data deepen the wonder instead of dimming it. After all, the night stories have been guiding humanity since we first laid down beneath the stars. Some voices are too old, too wise to fade. From the sacred temples of Egypt to the flickering screens of sleep labs, humanity's relationship with dreams has been a dance between reverence and revelation. We've stood at the crossroads of divinity and neurology, where pharaohs once sought celestial guidance and scientists now trace the firing of synapses. Yet for all our progress, for every brain scan that maps a nightmare or algorithm that decodes a symbol, dreams refuse to be fully tamed. They remain the last wild frontier of the mind, a place where logic surrenders to poetry and where the past whispers to the present in the language of symbols. Think of the threads that bind us to those who came before: a Babylonian priest etching omens into clay, a medieval mystic transcribing visions by candlelight, a modern therapist guiding a patient through recurring nightmares. Though separated by centuries, each was grappling with the same eternal question: what are dreams trying to tell us? The answers have shifted with the tides of history, from divine prophecies to psychological archetypes, yet the essence remains unchanged. Dreams are mirrors, reflecting not just our personal fears and desires, but the collective heartbeat of humanity. When you dream of falling, you're echoing the same primal fear that haunted a Roman soldier or a Renaissance merchant. When you soar above rooftops in your sleep, you're tapping into the same boundless hope that inspired Leonardo's flying machines. Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." It's a reminder that dreams aren't just curiosities to be dissected, they're invitations. To explore them is to embark on the most intimate archaeological dig, uncovering layers of selfhood buried beneath the noise of daily life. Every symbol, every recurring character, every inexplicable emotion upon waking is a clue waiting to be unraveled. And while science offers tools to understand the mechanics, the how, the why still lingers in the realm of mystery, where art, faith, and intuition hold sway. So tonight, before you sleep, try something our ancestors would recognize. Set an intention, keep a notebook by your bed, or whisper a question into the dark. Then, in the morning, listen not just with your waking mind, but with the part of you that remembers how to speak in symbols. And when you're ready, share what you discover. Tell us in the comments, what's the most vivid dream you've ever had? The one that felt too real to dismiss, too strange to forget. Because this isn't just a history lesson, it's a conversation stretching back to the first campfire stories and forward into the uncharted territory of tomorrow's dreams. If these echoes of the past have stirred something in you, don't let the curiosity end here. Hit subscribe and join us as we keep unraveling history's greatest enigmas, one mystery, one dream, one awakened moment at a time. The night is full of stories. Yours might be the next one.